At 7:02 p.m. on a windy Friday evening, a 49-year-old Latina executive named Lorena Avila stepped into the grand lobby of the Sunrise Estate Resort in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Her shoulders carried the grace of someone used to making high-stakes decisions, yet there was no entourage trailing behind her, no assistant rushing to open doors. She preferred to travel light, a single roller bag in one hand, laptop case in the other. She had arrived a day early for a corporate summit she hadn't planned to attend in person, but circumstances changed, and so had her itinerary. All she wanted now was a quiet suite, a warm shower, and a decent night's rest before facing a day-long strategy session with shareholders. But the moment Lorena crossed the polished threshold of the Sunrise Estate Resort, a place she had helped fund, develop, and eventually wholly acquire, she sensed the atmosphere shifting. Her presence did not go unnoticed. A few staff members glanced away, then hurriedly looked back at their tasks. A handful of guests lingered in the lounge, sipping drinks and scrolling on their phones. A grand floral arrangement dominated the center of the lobby, and warm, recessed lighting glowed from the high ceilings. Despite the luxurious ambience, a subtle tension hovered in the air. She approached the reception desk, where a young woman with bright pink nails was tapping impatiently at a keyboard. Her name tag read Sasha. The desk itself was clad in marbled stone, boasting a modern design that Lorena had personally selected from an architectural catalog years earlier. However, no flicker of recognition appeared on Sasha's face. She offered only a perfunctory greeting. "Welcome to Sunrise Estate," the receptionist said, forcing a professional smile. "May I help you?" Lorena answered in a calm, friendly voice. "Yes, I'm checking in. I have a room reserved under the name Avila. Lorena Avila. It should be a suite held for me." Sasha's fingertips clacked across the keyboard. She glanced at the screen, frowning slightly. "I'm not showing a reservation for that name," she replied. "We're actually at full capacity tonight. Are you sure you have the right place?" Lorena nodded politely. "Absolutely sure. The reservation might be in an owner's block or an executive hold. Please look again." Sasha's expression soured. She made a dramatic show of hitting a few more keys. "There's nothing here under that block. I'm sorry," she said, though her tone lacked any genuine apology. "We have no vacancies for walk-ins either. We're hosting a major event, so unless you have a confirmed booking, I'm afraid I can't help you." Lorena heard the unspoken subtext in the woman's words. "You don't look like you belong here." Her rolled-up sleeves revealed toned arms, but no flashy jewelry. Her sleek black pantsuit was more functional than ostentatious, and her hair was pulled back in a simple twist. She looked like any well-traveled professional, not the image of a lavish spender or resort owner. Although Lorena had no interest in a public scene, she felt the sting of being dismissed, not for the first time. Quietly, she turned her gaze to the large golden plaque behind the front desk. It read, "Sunrise Estate Resort, A.L. Avila Property." She returned her focus to Sasha. "I appreciate your thoroughness," Lorena said, voice steady. "But I do, in fact, own this resort. I'd like to be checked in. I'm only staying for one night." Sasha's eyebrows shot up, and for a moment, she looked both taken aback and doubtful. "You own it," she repeated, not bothering to hide her disbelief. Lorena nodded. Sasha picked up the desk phone. "I'll need to call my manager. Could you step aside while I do that?" Around them, a few people began to watch, their conversations silenced by curiosity. A man in a designer jacket, waiting in line behind Lorena, craned his neck to see what was happening. A pair of friends by the windows paused their chat, leaning in to catch stray bits of conversation. Rather than argue, Lorena nodded courteously. She stepped a few feet away, setting down her luggage. The agitation coursing through her was familiar, a dull ache rather than a shock. She had endured enough run-ins like this over the course of her career. People who could not reconcile her professional status with her background, her accent, or her understated manner. Over time, she developed a steady approach. Remain calm, state the facts, and let the system reveal itself. A uniformed security guard drifted toward the reception area, arms crossed. Another staff member in a crisp navy blazer arrived, name tag identifying him as Damian Franco, assistant manager. He looked from Sasha to Lorena, forcing a bright smile. "Good evening," he began. "Is there an issue with your reservation?" "She claims to own the resort," Sasha said, crossing her arms. Lorena studied Damian, measuring the flicker of recognition, or lack thereof, in his eyes. She found none. "My name is Lorena Avila," she said. "This resort is under my corporation's portfolio. I came to check in." Damian hesitated, then cleared his throat. "Let me see what we can figure out," he said, heading toward a side office with brisk steps. Almost on cue, a second security guard positioned himself near the elevator bank, just close enough to be visible. If Lorena had wanted to fight or cause a scene, now would be the time. But that wasn't her style. She simply folded her arms and waited, remaining upright in a state of practiced composure. She knew the truth, and in a few moments, everyone else would too. Before we go any further, if you're watching this tale unfold and you've ever been in a situation where people underestimated you, take a moment to drop a like, hit subscribe, and let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. It's moments like these that remind us why mutual respect matters. Meanwhile, Lorena decided to make a single phone call. Pulling out her cell, she dialed a direct number to her chief administrative officer. She spoke softly, offering only the facts. "I'm at Sunrise Estate, and there's a misunderstanding about my room. Could you handle it?" Her side of the conversation lasted less than 20 seconds. She ended the call and returned to her composed vigil by the front desk. Sasha was now whispering into the phone, still evidently unconvinced. Damian popped out of the side office, rummaging through a folder that looked suspiciously like daily occupancy logs. Guests in the lobby watched, intrigued but wary. The hush that had settled was thick, laden with tension. Within 5 minutes, a man in a tailored gray suit walked in through the main doors, scanning the area with an urgent expression. He was followed closely by another individual carrying a tablet. The first man's face was drawn with concern, and he moved with the purpose of someone who had just received an alarming phone call. Lorena recognized him at once. Michael Serrano, the regional director for Avila Hospitality, a seasoned professional she had promoted years back. The second individual was Jordan Kraft, the corporate liaison for this sector. They hurried toward her, ignoring Sasha entirely. "Ms. Avila, we're so sorry about this," Michael said, voice low and respectful. "We just got word. Everything's being handled," Jordan added, glancing nervously at the gawking staff. Damian rushed forward, appearing both flustered and defensive. I was just trying to verify." Michael cut him off gently but firmly, saying, "Yes, of course. We appreciate diligence, but Ms. Avila is the owner. There should never have been any doubt." Lorena remained poised. It was a relief, certainly, but also wearying. Even with her name emblazoned on the property's documents, she had to stand there and wait for outside confirmation. "I'd like my room key now," she said simply. Jordan nodded, tapping on the tablet. "The executive suite on the 12th floor is ready. We're setting up your preferred amenities. Do you require anything else? I need only the basics. No special frills." She nodded once, turning to Michael. "But I do want a conversation with whomever trains the staff. The level of bias I encountered isn't acceptable. Understood?" Michael swallowed. "Understood completely. We'll initiate an immediate review of front desk protocol and staff conduct." Sasha, realizing the gravity of her mistake, could only watch this exchange in stunned silence. Damian stepped aside, sweat beading on his forehead. The tension in the air had pivoted. No longer was it directed at Lorena, but at the employees who had so hastily dismissed her. Lorena held out her hand for the key card. Jordan gave it to her with an apologetic smile. "Your suite is down the hall on the top floor, far left," he said. "We'll deliver fresh fruit and—" She nodded, cutting him off gently. "That's fine. Thank you." She turned, luggage in tow, and walked to the elevator. Heads turned, whispers circulated. She wore the calm expression of someone who had fought battles like this one too many times. Up in the 12th floor suite, she was greeted by a lovely minimalist design of earth tones and subtle southwestern motifs, a decor she had helped choose. The sliding doors opened onto a small terrace overlooking Santa Fe's picturesque sunsets. An arrangement of seasonal fruit sat on the glass coffee table. A brand new espresso machine stood next to a selection of gourmet pods. Lorena walked the perimeter of the room, shoulders stiff, heart still pounding with residual adrenaline. Part of her wanted to let the anger go. Part of her wanted to hold onto it long enough for something meaningful to be done. She recalled, with painful clarity, her earlier days in the hospitality industry, managing late-night audits in cramped offices, wearing second-hand suits, being mistaken for an office assistant when she was actually the controller. It felt like a lifetime ago. And yet, the old humiliations had never fully disappeared. She checked her phone, one text from her chief administrative officer reading, all sorted. "Do you want me to send out an internal memo?" She typed back, "Yes, but hold off on anything public. Let me handle it in person first." She wanted to avoid sensationalizing the event. This needed to be an internal reckoning, not a public embarrassment campaign. Easing onto the plush sofa, she inhaled deeply, letting her gaze wander across the neat lines of the space. This place was, in some ways, a manifestation of her long years of sacrifice. The top-tier property in her hospitality group, featuring an award-winning spa, an infinity pool with mountain views, and a staff curated to provide impeccable service. How ironic that she could walk in and be turned away, yet it wasn't surprising. She had learned long ago that people's biases ran faster than their curiosity. They saw what they expected, not what truly was. Still, there was a meeting to attend tomorrow. Shareholders and board members were gathering to discuss expansions, acquisitions, and the future vision for Avila Hospitality. She would appear as calm and collected as ever, while behind the scenes, staff training and leadership accountability would be overhauled. She didn't want revenge. She wanted progress. The next morning, Lorena rose at 6 o'clock sharp, showered, and dressed in a dark navy suit with a simple cream blouse. She pulled her hair back into a low bun, stepped into sensible heels, and walked out of the suite. The corridor was quiet save for a housekeeping cart. On her way down, she caught a glimpse of the sunrise warming the desert in shades of pink and gold. She took a measured breath, reminding herself that confrontation is necessary for change, but it needn't be destructive. The elevator doors opened onto the lobby. A few guests were milling about, some in running shoes and hoodies, others in suits. Lorena saw a cluster of staff near the front desk, including Sasha. She also noticed Michael and Jordan standing to the side. They nodded to Lorena, who walked toward them in calm, purposeful steps. Michael signaled for them to move into a private conference room adjacent to the lobby. Inside, Lorena found not only Sasha and Damien, but also Yvonne Porter, the corporate HR representative who had just flown in overnight. Attention hung in the windowless room, but Lorena took her seat at the head of the small table, setting down her tablet with quiet authority. "Good morning," she began. "Let's discuss what happened last night from your perspectives." Damien cleared his throat. "I was alerted that a guest was claiming ownership of the resort. Protocol states we verify high-profile reservations through corporate channels. But I suppose we handled it poorly, and the staff," he trailed off, glancing at Sasha. The young receptionist's eyes remained on her folded hands. "I thought she might be pulling some kind of trick," Sasha admitted, voice trembling slightly. "I didn't know. I've only been here a few months, and I'd never met you before, Ms. Avila." Lorena didn't raise her voice. "I understand you haven't met me, but would you treat any stranger that way? Telling them they can't stay, ignoring their claims, summoning security before verifying the details?" Sasha flushed. "I'm really sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean. I just assumed." "You assumed I was lying," Lorena finished. "You saw me, decided I didn't fit your image of who owns a place like this, and you treated me as if I were trespassing." Yvonne, the HR representative, spoke up. "We'll be conducting a thorough training program addressing unconscious bias, respectful communication, and the correct procedure for verifying special reservations. No staff member will skip it." Lorena folded her arms. I'm not out to terminate anyone unless there's a pattern of misconduct. Mistakes happen, but it's time to rectify how assumptions override facts. If a guest claims they have a specialized booking, you check first. You show courtesy. You don't bring insecurity unless someone is genuinely threatening or unsafe. Damien and Sasha nodded, looking properly chastised. Michael added, "This isn't an isolated scenario, Ms. Avila. We've had minor complaints about staff courtesy in the past month. This is just the most high-profile instance." Lorena exhaled, letting her frustration seep out slowly. "I've been in hospitality for decades. I started as a night auditor, then moved up through the ranks. I know what it's like to be invisible, to have your competence questioned. I built my company to create spaces where respect is the default, not an afterthought." Sasha whispered, "I understand. I really do. I used to work in fast food, and people treated me like garbage. I never wanted to be the one dismissing someone. I'm sorry." For a moment, Lorena saw sincerity in the receptionist's eyes. Guilt, yes, but also a genuine wish to learn from the ordeal. That was all Lorena needed to see. "Sasha, I don't want you to quit or be fired unless this becomes a habit. You'll go through the new training, and I expect the experience to humble you. We can't know every visitor's story when they walk in, but we can always act with courtesy and open-mindedness." Sasha nodded vigorously, relief mixing with remorse. Yvonne cleared her throat. "We'll also be updating everyone's knowledge of the property's leadership, so no one is caught off guard again." Lorena nodded. "That's fine. But ultimately, I don't need people to know my face by heart. I need them to respect any guest, regardless of appearance. Is that clear?" Damien, Sasha, and Yvonne murmured their agreement. The meeting ended with a consensus. Staff training would be rolled out immediately, and lines of communication would be improved to prevent such incidents from recurring. Lorena left the conference room, heading for the breakfast lounge. She ordered a cappuccino, leaning against a tall marble pillar while the barista prepared it. The hush from the staff was tangible. Everyone had heard the news, recognized who she was, and was on their best behavior. But Lorena wasn't interested in creating an atmosphere of fear. She simply wanted a standard of respect that didn't fluctuate based on stereotypes. Shortly after, she made her way to the main banquet hall, where the corporate summit was about to commence. Rows of chairs faced a panel table, while large windows framed the desert skyline. Board members and shareholders had already begun to arrive, exchanging pleasantries and taking seats. A few recognized Lorena and offered greetings, but she remained focused on the day's agenda. The meeting progressed smoothly, diving into discussions about property expansions, potential acquisitions, and brand partnerships. Lorena navigated it with precision, as always. Her voice was firm yet warm, her ideas well received. The humiliating events of the night before lingered in the back of her mind, but she used that memory to reinforce every point she made about corporate culture. We succeed if we treat our employees and guests with dignity, from top to bottom. This isn't just a matter of public image. It's what keeps us innovative and resilient. During a lunch break, a junior board member timidly approached Lorena. "I heard about what happened at check-in. I'm really sorry. I hope you know some of us deeply respect you and everything you built." Lorena gave a light nod. "Thank you. But I'm more concerned about how we handle incidents of bias. Apologies only matter if we follow them up with real change." The young woman nodded eagerly. "I agree. Please let me know if I can help." That afternoon, a hush fell over the hallways as Lorena and her core leadership team circulated a memo requiring staff at every Avila property to complete new training modules. The modules stressed empathy, active listening, and a thorough review of the check-in procedure, whether someone claimed to be an owner, a VIP, or just a weary traveler. The last line of the memo read, "We are not just in the business of selling rooms. We are in the business of welcoming people." Once the board meeting wrapped, Lorena gathered her belongings from her suite. As she double-checked that she had left nothing behind, she found a small envelope on the desk with her name typed on it. Inside was a brief handwritten note from Sasha. "Ms. Avila, I'm sorry for making assumptions. Thank you for giving me a chance to learn. I promise to be better." Lorena traced the lines of Sasha's careful handwriting. It wasn't grand, but it felt genuine. She tucked the note into her laptop case, exhaling a quiet breath of resolution. Growth often comes from mistakes, and if that was the outcome, perhaps the sting of the previous night had some purpose. Just then, a gentle knock sounded on the door. Opening it, she found Michael Serrano standing there with an apologetic half-smile. "Leaving so soon?" Lorena nodded. "I have a flight this evening." He paused, swallowing. "I just want to thank you for your patience. That could have escalated in so many ways." She inclined her head. "I'm not interested in public shaming. I want improvement. We can't keep letting old biases sabotage what we're building." "That goes for you, Jordan, and everyone else in leadership." Michael nodded, placing a business card in her hand. "We're doing a full staff debrief tomorrow. I'll keep you updated." "I appreciate that," she said quietly. With one last look around the suite, Lorena followed Michael into the hallway. The two parted in the elevator lobby, Michael heading to coordinate the newly required training, Lorena descending to the ground floor, suitcase rolling softly behind her. She took the opportunity to reflect on the scene outside the main doors. Sunlight streaming through the glass, a line of guests waiting to check in, staff moving about with a mixture of caution and attentiveness. At the entrance, the doorman tipped his hat politely. "Safe travels, Ms. Avila. We hope to see you again soon." "Thank you," she murmured, stepping into the warm light of late afternoon. A sleek sedan pulled up to the circular driveway, arranged by the corporate travel department. The driver hopped out, took her suitcase, and opened the passenger door. She slid inside, mind swirling with fragments of the last 24 hours. The dismissive way Sasha had told her, "We're full," the phone call to rectify the situation, and the subsequent flurry of apologies and damage control. Yet it was the heartfelt note that lingered most, suggesting that maybe, for at least one person, this moment would become a turning point, a real lesson in how to treat others. And that, to Lorena, was more valuable than any corporate policy. As the car glided away from the resort, she closed her eyes and remembered the heartbreaks and humiliations of her early career. A single mother of two at 25, she'd juggled night classes while working front desk at a budget motel. She'd faced condescension from managers and second-guessing from coworkers. All those experiences had shaped her into a leader who knew exactly what it felt like to be overlooked and undermined. She had promised herself she would build a better environment when she had the power to do so. And that power, she had learned, wasn't just about signing checks or hiring and firing. It was about creating a culture that couldn't be undone by one person's bias. It was about ensuring that respect was woven into every handshake, every phone call, every guest interaction. The sedan merged onto the highway leading to Albuquerque International Sunport. The majestic desert stretched out on either side, dotted with sagebrush and the occasional adobe home. A swirl of dusty wind kicked across the pavement, reminding Lorena of Santa Fe's rugged beauty that had drawn her to establish a signature resort here in the first place. She scrolled through her phone, checking emails and scanning notifications. Dozens of messages poured in from corporate, from outside business partners, from curious staff at other locations who had caught wind of the fiasco. Most expressed confusion or concern. A few offered well-meaning but clumsy attempts at sympathy. Lorena decided to respond only after she reached the airport lounge, wanting some uninterrupted space to gather her thoughts. If this part of the story resonates with you, if you've ever been underestimated or had someone question your legitimacy, share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more real-life stories that shed light on the hidden battles so many of us face. Every voice matters, and I want to hear yours. When the car arrived at the airport, Lorena placed her phone in her handbag and thanked the driver. Inside, bustling travelers formed snaking lines at check-in counters. Overhead announcements crackled about flight statuses. Nobody recognized her as a high-powered figure controlling a growing hotel empire. She blended into the swirl of everyday life with her carry-on bag, wearing the same unassuming attire she'd worn at the resort. She slid her ID and boarding pass across the airline counter, receiving a polite but ordinary greeting from the staff. This ordinary courtesy felt almost comforting, a reminder that respectful service was not complicated. It simply required recognition of shared humanity. After passing through security, she found a quiet gate corner, dropped into a plastic seat, and opened her laptop. A new message from Jordan, the corporate liaison, appeared at the top of her inbox. Gold. She took a measured breath, reminding herself that confrontation is necessary for change, but it needn't be destructive. The elevator doors opened onto the lobby. A few guests were milling about, some in running shoes and hoodies, others in suits. Lorena saw a cluster of staff near the front desk, including Sasha. She also noticed Michael and Jordan standing to the side. They nodded to Lorena, who walked toward them in calm, purposeful steps. Michael signaled for them to move into a private conference room adjacent to the lobby. Inside, Lorena found not only Sasha and Damien, but also Yvonne Porter, the corporate HR representative who had just flown in overnight. Attention hung in the windowless room, but Lorena took her seat at the head of the small table, setting down her tablet with quiet authority. "Good morning," she began. "Let's discuss what happened last night from your perspectives." Damien cleared his throat. "I was alerted that a guest was claiming ownership of the resort. Protocol states we verify high-profile reservations through corporate channels. But I suppose we handled it poorly and the staff," he trailed off, glancing at Sasha. The young receptionist's eyes remained on her folded hands. "I thought she might be pulling some kind of trick," Sasha admitted, voice trembling slightly. "I didn't know. I've only been here a few months, and I'd never met you before, Ms. Avila." Lorena didn't raise her voice. "I understand you haven't met me, but would you treat any stranger that way? Telling them they can't stay, ignoring their claims, summoning security before verifying the details?" Sasha flushed. "I'm really sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean. I just assumed." "You assumed I was lying," Lorena finished. "You saw me, decided I didn't fit your image of who owns a place like this, and you treated me as if I were trespassing." Yvonne, the HR representative, spoke up. "We'll be conducting a thorough training program addressing unconscious bias, respectful communication, and the correct procedure for verifying special reservations. No staff member will skip it." Lorena folded her arms. "I'm not out to terminate anyone unless there's a pattern of misconduct. Mistakes happen, but it's time to rectify how assumptions override facts. If a guest claims they have a specialized booking, you check first. You show courtesy. You don't bring in security unless someone is genuinely threatening or unsafe." Damien and Sasha nodded, looking properly chastised. Michael added, "This isn't an isolated scenario, Ms. Avila. We've had minor complaints about staff courtesy in the past month. This is just the most high-profile instance." Lorena exhaled, letting her frustration seep out slowly. "I've been in hospitality for decades. I started as a night auditor, then moved up through the ranks. I know what it's like to be invisible, to have your competence questioned. I built my company to create spaces where respect is the default, not an afterthought." Sasha whispered, "I understand. I really do. I used to work in fast food and people treated me like garbage. I never wanted to be the one dismissing someone. I'm sorry." For a moment, Lorena saw sincerity in the receptionist's eyes. Guilt, yes, but also a genuine wish to learn from the ordeal. That was all Lorena needed to see. "Sasha, I don't want you to quit or be fired unless this becomes a habit. You'll go through the new training, and I expect the experience to humble you. We can't know every visitor's story when they walk in, but we can always act with courtesy and open-mindedness." Sasha nodded vigorously, relief mixing with remorse. Yvonne cleared her throat. "We'll also be updating everyone's knowledge of the property's leadership, so no one is caught off guard again." Lorena nodded. "That's fine. But ultimately, I don't need people to know my face by heart. I need them to respect any guest, regardless of appearance. Is that clear?" Damien, Sasha, and Yvonne murmured their agreement. The meeting ended with a consensus. Staff training would be rolled out immediately, and lines of communication would be improved to prevent such incidents from recurring. Lorena left the conference room, heading for the breakfast lounge. She ordered a cappuccino, leaning against a tall marble pillar while the barista prepared it. The hush from the staff was tangible. Everyone had heard the news, recognized who she was, and was on their best behavior. But Lorena wasn't interested in creating an atmosphere of fear. She simply wanted a standard of respect that didn't fluctuate based on stereotypes. Shortly after, she made her way to the main banquet hall, where the corporate summit was about to commence. Rows of chairs faced a panel table, while large windows framed the desert skyline. Board members and shareholders had already begun to arrive, exchanging pleasantries and taking seats. A few recognized Lorena and offered greetings, but she remained focused on the day's agenda. The meeting progressed smoothly, diving into discussions about property expansions, potential acquisitions, and brand partnerships. Lorena navigated it with precision, as always. Her voice was firm yet warm, her ideas well received. The humiliating events of the night before lingered in the back of her mind, but she used that memory to reinforce every point she made about corporate culture. We succeed if we treat our employees and guests with dignity, from top to bottom. This isn't just a matter of public image. It's what keeps us innovative and resilient. During a lunch break, a junior board member timidly approached Lorena. "I heard about what happened at check-in. I'm really sorry. I hope you know some of us deeply respect you and everything you built." Lorena gave a light nod. "Thank you. But I'm more concerned about how we handle incidents of bias. Apologies only matter if we follow them up with real change." The young woman nodded eagerly. "I agree. Please let me know if I can help." Just wrapped up a preliminary meeting with staff. Everyone is aware of the seriousness of the situation. We're revising orientation protocols. Let me know if you want me to handle any media inquiries. She typed a quick response. "No public statements unless absolutely necessary. This is a learning moment, not a scandal. Keep me updated." Lorena also saw a new message from an old friend, questioning whether she was all right. Apparently, word traveled fast. She typed back, "I'm fine. Same old story, new day." Holding firm, as always. Restlessness stirred in her chest. She'd done everything right, composed, professional. No grand displays of anger. Yet beneath her calm facade lay the deeper question. How many more times will I have to prove my right to be here? The answer was unclear, but she suspected the fight wasn't over. The next time she showed up to a different Avila property unannounced, would the staff greet her with the same skepticism? That depended on how seriously her management took today's events. Her flight was called over the intercom, and she rose to join the queue. The overhead compartments were quickly filling, and she had to stow her roller bag a few rows behind her seat. Settling in, she fastened her seatbelt, let her eyes drift shut, and replayed the final image of the resort. The doorman wishing her a safe trip with genuine warmth. That was how it should have been from the start, for every guest, owner or not. As the plane's engines roared to life and Santa Fe's landscape dropped away beneath the wing, she allowed herself a moment of reflection. In a world that constantly tries to measure your value by superficial markers, title, attire, accent, or background, you have to hold onto your sense of self more fiercely than ever. For Lorena, that meant carrying the weight of every slight and turning it into a catalyst for better policies, better training, better workplaces. Mid-flight, she opened her eyes to the soft hum of the cabin. Clouds drifted past in the twilight. She took out her tablet and began drafting notes for an internal video that would be circulated to all employees. She wanted to speak plainly about why respect matters, not from a place of accusation, but from a place of unity. She sketched an outline, share a brief anecdote from her career start, explain the values of Avila hospitality, highlight staff and guest experiences, and close with a call to treat everyone with dignity. She believed that real transformation arose from empathy, from letting people see the human face behind the corporate brand. She typed, "People come to our resorts seeking rest, joy, or a special experience. Our job is to nurture that regardless of who they are or what they look like. She paused, considering the best words to convey her conviction. Then she typed more, weaving her personal story in a way that could resonate with employees at all levels. At last, the plane touched down with a gentle bump, rolling along the runway. Lorena powered off her tablet, feeling a sense of renewed clarity about her mission. When the seatbelt sign clicked off, she retrieved her bag from the overhead bin. Disembarking, she stepped into the bustling arrivals area, walking with the confidence of someone who might be invisible to the masses, but carried an unshakable knowledge of her own worth. She made her way to the airport exit, where a friend was waiting to drive her home. As they pulled onto the freeway, Lorena stared at the blur of lights against the evening sky. Thoughts swirled around the changes she would implement, the trainings that would roll out, and the potential pushback from those who resisted. Yet she felt resolute. Real progress rarely comes without discomfort. Her phone vibrated with a social media notification. Several employees had commented on a company-wide post about mandatory inclusivity training, with responses ranging from supportive to curious. One read, "I don't see why we need more training. We're all nice to guests." Another read, "This is a good wake-up call for all of us, me included." Lorena took a moment to reply to the second comment, "Appreciate your open mind." Then she let the rest lie, aware she couldn't reach everyone in one day. Late that night, when she was finally home, she placed her suitcase in the closet and sank onto her living room couch. A single lamp glowed softly, illuminating framed photographs of her children, who were both grown and on their own journeys. She remembered, with poignant detail, how she had once been a nobody in the eyes of so many, and how each slight, each dismissal, had fueled her determination to reshape the hospitality industry from the inside out. She exhaled a slow breath, allowing the tension to drain from her muscles. This episode was just the latest challenge, one more test of her resolve, and she had passed it without losing her composure or letting bitterness consume her. Instead, she harnessed it to enact deeper, lasting changes. If you've stuck around this long, I'd love to hear your perspective. Have you ever been judged at face value, forced to prove your worth in a space you rightfully belonged? Share your story in the comments below, drop a like, and make sure to subscribe for more real-life experiences that remind us why standing up for ourselves and others is so important. Early the next morning, Lorena found herself back at her home office. She flipped open her laptop and reviewed the training modules Yvonne had drafted overnight. They looked promising: empathy exercises, real customer scenarios, case studies of bias incidents. Lorena made a few notes for additional improvements, emphasizing that staff should never get complacent just because they've watched a slideshow or answered multiple choice questions. Real empathy demanded ongoing effort. She also read through the newly revised employee manual for Sunrise Estate, which clarified check-in protocols for flag reservations. No staff was to call security unless there was a credible concern for safety, not simply because someone's claim seemed unusual. The manual introduced a verify, then act principle. Staff must consult at least 2 sources, computer records, the property's ownership logs, or a manager's direct line, before dismissing a guest who insists they have special authorization. Around midday, she teleconferenced with Michael and Jordan, both wearing serious expressions. "Everything is in motion," Michael said. "Sasha's on partial suspension during her training. Damien will undergo management mentoring." Lorena sighed but nodded. "I don't want to micromanage, but I do want to see improvements in staff attitudes. Keep me updated." "We will," Jordan added. "By the way, we've gotten a couple of inquiries from local news. They heard rumors of an owner incident. We've kept it quiet, as you asked." "Let's keep it that way," Lorena said. "This is an internal matter, not a headline. I don't need us trending on social media for the wrong reasons." After the call, Lorena wondered if a quiet approach was truly best. Public calls for accountability could spark faster action sometimes. But she decided that in this instance, educating her own workforce and ensuring consistent respect across every property was more vital than a fleeting burst of publicity. She sought transformation, not spectacle. That evening, after a long series of administrative tasks, Lorena took a walk around her neighborhood. The desert breeze was cool, and the sky shimmered with stars. She recalled the swirl of confusion and suspicion she had encountered in the Sunrise Estate lobby. How many times had she felt that same chill in other places, boardrooms, conferences, investor meetings, where people assumed she was somebody's assistant rather than the key decision-maker? Yet, with each painful experience, she had grown stronger and more determined to be the change she wished to see. She had fought for policies that demanded the best out of every team member: courtesy, empathy, efficiency, and forward-thinking. She had walked into countless rooms where people doubted her, only to walk out leaving them in awe of her competence. Sometimes that was enough. Other times, it felt like an endless battle. But as she looked at the vast night sky, she whispered to herself, "Progress is incremental, but it's still progress." The next day, she penned an internal letter to her employees across all Avila hospitality properties. Dear team, some of you have heard about an incident at our Santa Fe resort. While I won't delve into every detail, the core takeaway is simple. Each person who walks through our doors deserves respect and fair treatment. We do not judge guests based on assumptions or appearances. We verify the facts, and we honor their humanity. This company was built on the principle that anyone can achieve excellence if given the right environment and support. Let's exemplify that principle in our daily interactions. Whether we are talking to a backpacking college student on a budget or a luxury traveler seeking the best suite, our standards should never change. I have faith in our collective ability to grow from mistakes. Thank you for your hard work. Let's move forward together. Sincerely, Lorena Avila, CEO, Avila Hospitality. She closed the letter with a firm sense of resolution. Then she scheduled it for distribution company-wide. With that done, she checked the time and saw that she had a video call scheduled in half an hour. She decided to do it from her home office, stepping into the polished yet cozy space lined with books and a potted cactus in the corner. Once the call started, she recognized the faces of some managers from distant properties, Chicago, Miami, Seattle, who had joined from their offices. They all greeted her warmly, some offering awkward condolences for her experience. She raised a hand to gently brush off their sympathy. "I'm not interested in pity," Lorena said, leaning toward the camera. "I'm interested in making sure none of you, or your staff, or your guests ever have to feel that sense of rejection because of a snap judgment. If we can achieve that, we'll be far ahead of our competitors, not just financially, but morally too." A murmur of agreement flowed across the digital connection. Questions arose about how to handle difficult guests, how to avoid overcompensating in ways that might seem insincere, and how to incorporate the new training into busy schedules. Lorena patiently answered each, emphasizing practical solutions. Pair short video modules with on-the-job checklists. Encourage staff to reflect on personal experiences of being stereotyped, and so on. After the call ended, she felt a sense of pride in her managers. Despite occasional flaws, they shared a collective vision for a more inclusive hospitality experience. If they stayed committed, real change would happen, and not just at Sunrise Estate. Late that afternoon, while scanning her phone, Lorena found a new comment on the corporate intranet from Sasha herself. "I want to publicly apologize for my actions. I'm determined to improve and show every guest the warmth they deserve. Thank you to Ms. Avila for giving me a second chance." Sasha, Sunrise Estate Reception. It made Lorena smile. She typed a quick reply, "Glad to see your commitment. Keep learning." That was enough. As dusk settled, Lorena reflected on how events had escalated from a single check-in incident to a sweeping review of staff protocols across the company. Change often starts with one spark, but if people choose to fan that spark into a flame of awareness, it can illuminate entire institutions. For anyone still watching, for anyone who's ever felt unseen in a place where they rightfully belonged, know your worth and never be afraid to demand basic respect. If you've experienced anything similar, drop a comment below, share your story, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. These stories matter because they're not just stories. They're lived realities that teach us how to stand firm in who we are. In the days that followed, Lorena received updates from Michael and Jordan. Training sessions commenced at Sunrise Estate. Videos of housekeeping staff, maintenance crews, and receptionists gathered in break rooms circulated around the corporate offices. She saw employees practicing greeting exercises, learning to pivot from skepticism to courtesy. Sasha appeared in a short clip, attentively taking notes. Meanwhile, Damien was placed under a performance improvement plan. He was assigned a mentor from another Avila resort with better managerial ratings. The Human Resources Department recommended he shadow a more seasoned leader for 2 weeks to observe how to de-escalate conflicts without defaulting to suspicion. Even as Lorena supervised these changes from afar, she resumed her usual duties, negotiating new vendor contracts, traveling to prospective sites for expansions, attending leadership summits. She stepped into conference rooms and hotel lobbies across multiple states, sometimes recognized immediately, sometimes greeted with that same uncertain stare. Yet each time, she carried with her the memory of what had happened in Santa Fe, using it to inform new dialogues with staff. She also received the occasional text from Sasha, who apparently was sincere about rebuilding trust. One message read, "Just checked in a guest who arrived frazzled with no reservation number. Instead of dismissing them, I calmly looked them up in the system. Turned out they had a reservation under a slight misspelling of their name. Thanks for teaching me." Lorena replied, "Proud of you. Keep it up." It wasn't about forging a friendship. It was about ensuring that one person's error transformed into a permanent shift in how they treated others. That, to Lorena, was the real triumph. On the surface, the rest of the industry might never know or care about this incident. But within Avila Hospitality, a ripple effect was underway, re-emphasizing the company's core values, reminding everyone from the housekeeping staff to the regional directors that you never know who you're speaking to or what burdens they carry when they walk through your doors. Months rolled by. The Santa Fe property thrived under new leadership guidelines, earning high satisfaction ratings from all kinds of guests. Families on vacation, busy entrepreneurs, honeymooners, retirees. Lorena made 2 unannounced visits to separate Avila resorts in Dallas and San Diego, checking in with minimal fuss. Both times, the staff responded with polite efficiency, verifying her identity only when she provided them with a special reference code. The key difference was that they did it all with courtesy and respect, no side eye, no immediate call to security. In her quiet, determined way, Lorena felt a sense of hope. She understood that no single training program could eradicate human bias entirely, but the will to improve was there. And sometimes that was enough to tip the balance. At last, Lorena found a moment to share a final reflection, which she posted on the company's social media page, accessible to both guests and employees. In all my years in hospitality, I've learned that respect isn't a perk reserved for VIPs. It's a basic standard that should apply to every person who walks into our spaces. If you're ever in a moment where someone questions your right to be there, let it remind you of your own strength, and let it remind them of who you truly are. I have faith in our ability to grow, to learn, to make sure that incidents like the one I experienced serve as catalysts for positive change. I promise that, as the leader of this company, I will keep working to ensure each of you feels seen and valued, whether you are an employee or a guest. Thank you for walking this path with me. Lorena Avila. And with that, she closed her laptop, exhaling the last of the tension she had carried since that fateful check-in. The transformation was ongoing, never a finished chapter, always a story in progress. But she could rest for now, knowing that her steady insistence on respect was shaping the world she had built, one reception desk at a time. If this journey spoke to something in your heart, remember to like this video, subscribe, and share it with friends. And let me know in the comments, where are you watching from? And how have you responded when someone questioned your place in the world? Your experiences matter, and together we can keep championing a future where no one has to fight for the dignity they inherently deserve.